let me ask you something. Does your cookie dough always come out flat? Or maybe it's puffy? Or somewhere in between that you just do not like? If so, stay right here. I'm going to show you how to make a no-fail chocolate chip cookie dough recipe. The thing about making cookie dough is that it's science, y'all. It is straight chemistry. So it's so important that you get your measurements right for your cookie dough to come out the way that you want it. So get measuring cups and measuring spoons, because it's so important that your recipe is precise if you want the cookies to come out right. Don't be guessing it. Use the measuring cups, use the measuring spoons. Okay, let's talk about the ingredients. So you're going to need 2 1/4 cup of flour, a teaspoon of salt, and a teaspoon of baking soda. You're also going to need 2 softened butter sticks, okay? Softened means not melted, but softened, room temperature, okay? So take it out about an hour or two before you start making your cookies. Then you're also going to need 2 eggs, as well as 3/4 of a cup of sugar. And then you'll also need 3/4 of a cup of brown sugar. I use light brown sugar. You can use dark, it doesn't matter, okay? As long as it's brown sugar, that's all you need. And you'll also need 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. I had to go and put my apron on because I was getting stuff all over my shirt. Anyway, let's go ahead and start adding these ingredients. So we'll start by adding a teaspoon of baking soda to the flour. And then you'll also need a teaspoon of salt. Okay, all right, and then we'll mix those up. Okay, now that that's mixed, we're gonna set this to the side. Okay, now here's a place when things tend to go wrong. Have you ever heard of creaming butter and sugar? Well, this is what you need to do for these cookies. That's why it's important for your butter to be room temperature and not melted. For this one, we want softened room temperature butter. All right, and then you're gonna add your sugar, which I talked about before. So you'll need 3/4 cups of both brown sugar and white sugar. Okay, now we're going to cream the butter and the sugar, and I will show you what that looks like. It's a process. So when you cream, you gotta use a little bit of elbow grease, okay? If you're not using your mixer, you gotta get into it. The butter and the sugar needs to be creamed in its own bowl, not in the flour bowl. Okay, so this is what it should look like once you've mixed in your butter and your sugar, okay? No granules, it should be smooth and looks like that. Okay, from here, you're gonna add in your eggs one at a time. Another trick, or not so much a trick, but something that helps your cookies come out better is if you take your eggs out, maybe like an hour or so they can come to room temperature too before you make your cookies. Because when you use cold ingredients and mix it with warm, it affects the chemistry of how your baked goods, not just cookies, just baked goods in general, come out. So bring everything to room temperature first before you start making it. All right, got that egg mixed in well. Now let's add the second one. Teaspoon of vanilla. Okay, so we got the eggs mixed in here along with the vanilla. So we're ready to start putting the dry ingredients in. Don't pour the whole thing in there, okay? You're not gonna take this whole bowl of dry ingredients and just dump the whole thing in here. So take your time. If you want good cookies, take your time. I'm gonna show you what I do. I usually like to go in at like a 1/2 cup at a time and mix well after each time I put in some of the wet. That's the only part where you don't have to be precise with your measurement. So I'll just take a little bit here and just go ahead and add it in. And we stir, stir, stir. and see how the color is going from white to the color of the dough, then you know it's time to start adding more. And also make sure you have a big enough bowl, because this flour will just be flying everywhere. So make sure your bowl is big enough to handle all of this. And ta-da! You have cookie dough. All right, y'all, so that's the basics on just making some straight cookie dough. I'm gonna add some chocolate chips to this because this is my chocolate chip recipe. Go ahead and turn your oven on. I bake at 375. Usually takes maybe about 11 minutes. The second batch doesn't take quite as long, but you need to keep an eye on your cookies, okay? So let's fold in those chocolate chips, and then we'll get our pan ready to put our chocolate chip cookies into the oven. You can use any type of chocolate chip cookies you want. It's up to you. I usually use about a full bag, which is, let me see, 12 ounces. Depends on how chocolatey you like your cookies. So we'll fold these in. It shouldn't take very long. But the key is to make sure that every bit of this dough has at least one chocolate chip cookie within a 1/4 of an inch radius. Now we can start scooping. All right, so I'm getting my pan ready for my cookies, right? So I use parchment paper when I make my cookies. Some people like it, some people don't. I feel like it's easier to clean up, and the cookies tend to bake a little bit evenly, in my opinion, but it's up to you if you want to use it or not. This is the size scooper that I use. This makes actually pretty good size cookies, but you can scoop using a smaller one, or you can use a spoon and just put it on the spoon and just drop it like that. Those are drop cookies, but I usually use this because it's easier to get the dough out, and I can boom, 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 and also know that my cookies are gonna be around the same size as they're baking. So I do a scoop. Comes out like this. Then I just add it to my paper. I usually try to leave them like 1 inch or so apart, so that in case that they do spread, they won't touch each other. And drop. One last thing, I also like to add a few more chips on top of the cookies so that it has like some nice texture on it. And when it comes out, it's like, ooh, girl, yes, the chocolate chips is full. So if you want, add a few of these more on the top before you put it in the oven. Alrighty, these babies are ready to go into the oven at 375. Listen, every oven is different, okay? The temperature, yes, is 375, okay? But make sure that you're keeping an eye on those cookies, because your oven may be slightly hotter than 375, or it could be slightly less than 375, okay? So make sure that you keep an eye on them, because the main thing is we don't want them to burn. We can always let them cook a little bit longer, but we don't want them to burn. Ta-da! There you go. Look at that. Those are, to me, the perfect chocolate chip. Look at this. Nice little level, little brown on the bottom, but it's super moist. Look at this. The perfect chocolate chip cookie. So let's recap the important things. 1, make sure you're using measuring cups and measuring spoons. Ingredients need to be precise if you want your cookies to be right. 2, make sure your ingredients that have been kept in the refrigerator, like eggs and butter, make sure you bring them to room temperature before you actually use them. 3, make sure that you cream your butter and sugar. Make sure it's nice and smooth before you move on to your next step. 4, make sure that you're incorporating your dry ingredients into your wet ingredients slowly. Like I said, I do about 1/4 cup of flour into my creamed butter and sugar. Make sure it's mixed well. 5, check your oven temperature. Like I said, we cook these at 375. Bake these at 375, but make sure that your oven is actually $3.75. And then enjoy. Listen, this is a very simple recipe. Anybody can do it. Just follow the directions. Most importantly, make sure that you are measuring precisely and that your oven is the right temperature. Enjoy your cookies.